Hi, my name is Ken, and I'm a student at the most famous cooking school in the world, Le Cordon Bleu, just a few blocks from the Eiffel Tower. Cordon Bleu Cuisine and Pastry School was founded in Paris in 1895. It owes its name to the ancient and prestigious Royal Order of the Holy Spirit, known as the Order of the Cordon Bleu. As a result, the name Cordon Bleu became synonymous with culinary excellence. Like the students, you too will benefit from the chef's experience, nearly a century of experience in teaching gastronomy. The program is organized in the form of complete menus, from easy to prepare to the more elaborate recipes that take you progressively towards discovering the subtle nuances of traditional haute cuisine. Bonjour. We're on Rue Claire in the 7th arrondissement of Paris, a very popular street for its well-known neighborhood fish market. In fact, today one of our students will introduce 3 delicious fish recipes. We'll also show you how to scale and debone fresh salmon. So watch carefully.
Hello, my name is Steve Giangulio, and I am a student at the Cordon Bleu. I plan to be working possibly on some yachts when I finish. You know, it'll be a little ways down the road. And today I would like to introduce the recipe Sole Bercy, which is going to be prepared by Chef Didier Beauclair.
Sole Bercy is a simple recipe with very few ingredients. It consists of 1 8-ounce sole per person, finely chopped shallots, parsley, fluted lemons, unsalted butter, dry white wine, fish stock, and of course, salt and pepper. Fish stock: 1 leek, coarsely chopped, 4 stalks celery, coarsely chopped, 1 onion, coarsely chopped, 1 whole whiting, about 12 ounces, 1 clove garlic, 3 sprigs thyme, 2 bay leaves, 10 sprigs parsley, 2 cups dry white wine, 4 cups water. Soles: 6 whole sole, 8 ounces each, 1 tablespoon unsalted butter, softened, 2 large shallots, finely chopped, salt, freshly ground white pepper, 1 cup dry white wine, 3/4 of a cup fish stock. The sauce: 2 tablespoons unsalted butter, softened, 4 tablespoons flour, 2 lemons fluted and sliced, 1 tablespoon finely chopped parsley. Since fish stock will be used to cook the sole, make it first. Fish stock is made with whole fish or fish bones. The chef is using whiting, but any white lean fish works well. Then parsley, leek, celery, thyme, bay leaves, onions, garlic, white wine, and water. Cut the green part of the leek lengthwise in 4 to remove any sand.
L'intérieur du poireau. Dans le céleri, c'est la même chose. Donc, on va bien laver ces légumes.
Wash the leek and celery well. Peel the onions and slice them finely.
La même chose avec le poireau.
Also, cut up the leek and celery.
La même chose avec les céleris. Et ce poisson, nous allons le couper lui aussi en morceaux.
Clean the fish well and cut it into large chunks.
Et nous allons le mettre dans une casserole.
Put the fish and the vegetables into a stock pot or large saucepan.
Alors, donc, la garniture aromatique. Tu as touché l'ail, je ne vais pas l'annoncer encore. Voilà.
Stir and cook gently. Cut a clove of garlic in half and add it, along with the thyme, bay leaves, and cut up parsley.
Et donc quelques branches de persil. Voilà. On va ajouter dedans du vin blanc.
Add the white wine and bring it to a boil to remove the acidity.
Et ce vin blanc, on va l'amener à ébullition, donc pour enlever l'acidité du vin, avant d'ajouter de l'eau.
Once the wine has reduced, add cold water. The standard proportions for fish stock are 1/3 wine to 2/3 water. It is also possible to make fish stock without wine, using only water. Bring the water to a boil. After boiling for 20 minutes, strain the fish stock into a bowl and allow it to cool. Now clean the fish. First, trim off all of the fins using a pair of kitchen or fish scissors.
Alors, des deux côtés.
Don't forget the small side fins.
Donc, vous faites une partie de la queue,
Cut off about half of the tail.
comme ceci. Donc, pour enlever cette
To
peau,
remove the skin,
il suffit d'abord
lay the fish on your cutting board with the white skin down.
sur l'arrêt.
Using a small knife, scrape away the dark skin on the tail to unstick it from the bones.
On va prendre donc dans une main,
Then hold the tail in one hand and the skin in the other, using paper towels to prevent them from slipping.
vers la tête.
Peel away the dark skin by pulling it towards the head. Completely remove all of the dark skin.
Alors, donc, pour la peau noire, on l'enlève. La peau blanche,
Once the dark skin has been removed, you can proceed to scrape the scales off of the white skin.
alors, on part donc
Do this near the kitchen sink, since it can be rather messy. Once again, hold the tail with a paper towel and scrape with the back of a small knife. Start at the tail and scrape towards the head. Cut and pull out the entrails and gills, and then wash the sole well under cold running water. Dry them thoroughly with paper towels.
le maximum d'eau sur le poisson. Alors, pour cuire la sole, nous avons
To cook the sole, you will need a metal roasting pan.
deux plaques,
This could also be done in a glass or ceramic oven-proof dish.
le matériel que vous avez. Dans cette plaque, nous allons mettre un peu de
Put
beurre
some softened butter in the pan
au fond.
and melt it on low heat.
Alors, donc, nous allons faire ce qu'on appelle un
Sprinkle a bed of finely chopped shallots, distributing them evenly in the pan.
Nous allons saler et poivrer.
Season with salt and pepper.
Et nous allons déposer sur cette plaque maintenant nos sols.
Arrange the sole in the pan with the white skin side down.
Donc, de nouveau, du sel et du poivre.
Season the fish again with salt and
Et
pepper
après, nous allons verser dessus du vin blanc. Alors, le vin blanc, nous allons le
and
faire
white
bouillir
wine.
pour enlever l'acidité du vin, pour que la sauce
Wine must always be boiled when used in a sauce. This is to remove some of the acidity from the wine. Skipping this step would result in an overly acidic sauce.
2 à 300 grammes.
So pour the wine into a saucepan and bring it to a boil.
Le vin étant à
Once the
ébullition,
wine comes to a boil, pour it over the
sur les
fish.
poissons. Et ajoutez donc maintenant notre fumée de poisson.
Also add the fish stock.
Alors les sols ont été posés dans les plaques, côté peau blanche. Alors la peau que nous avons laissée, j'ai oublié de
The chef is reminding you that the sole have been placed in the pan with the white skin side down.
Nous allons couvrir maintenant
This will be covered with a piece of buttered parchment paper.
le salé
Sprinkle salt and pepper onto the buttered side and place the paper over the fish, buttered side down.
Donc maintenant nous allons
Put the sole into a 425-degree oven for about 10 minutes.
Pendant à peu près une dizaine de minutes.
After about 10 minutes, test the fish. When the point of a knife pierces the flesh easily, remove them from the oven. Use a metal spatula to move the fish to your cutting board. Save the cooking liquid. With a small knife, trim away the small bones located around the edges of each sole. Brush a little bit of softened butter onto the serving platter. The butter will prevent the sole from sticking. Then carefully place each sole onto the buttered platter and keep them warm. Then prepare the beurre manier, or kneaded butter, which will be used to thicken the sauce. Use equal quantities by weight of flour and softened, unsalted butter. This will be much easier to mix if the butter is very soft. Mix the flour and butter together well with a fork.
Voilà, on mélange bien les deux ensemble. Donc on va incorporer le beurre manier petit à petit. C'est-à-dire qu'on ne va pas incorporer toute la quantité ensemble.
Add a small amount of the beurre manier to the boiling cooking liquid. Whisk the sauce until it boils and thickens slightly. Add more beurre manier little by little if you want the sauce to be thicker. Never add all of the beurre manier at once. The sauce is at the proper consistency when your finger leaves a mark on the back of a spoon.
Avant de napper, nous allons éponger.
Before spooning the sauce onto the sole, use a paper towel to absorb any liquid that has drained from the fish. This liquid will dilute the sauce and change its consistency. After fluting and slicing the lemon, arrange the lemon slices and parsley sprigs around the edges of the platter. Then ladle the hot sauce over each sole.
Avec notre sauce.
Tu me donnes un peu de persil encore, je vais faire un peu de persil.
Sprinkle the top of each fish with chopped parsley to add color.
Couleur au centre.
Now, doesn't that look appetizing?
Well, I hope you have enjoyed the sole bercy. And now we will be preparing a very nice recipe, which is saumon en gigondas with, again, Chef Didier Beauclerc.
We'll use gigondas wine, fresh salmon, and scampi, or freshwater crayfish. For 6 servings, we will use 1 3.5-pound salmon and 1.5 pounds of fresh scampi, a half a pound of spring onions, 4 cups of fish stock. For the fish stock, we have aromatic vegetables that the chef will talk about later, and 2 whitings. We will use mushrooms as a garnish, and 4 tomatoes. We will finish the sauce by thickening it with kneaded butter. Fish stock, 2 whiting, 2 leeks, white part only, 2 stalks celery, 2 onions, 1 clove garlic, thyme, bay leaf, parsley stems, 3 cups white wine, 6 cups water, 1.5 pounds fresh scampi or crayfish, 3.5 pound whole salmon. Gigondas sauce, 2 shallots, 11 tablespoons unsalted butter, 3 cups gigondas wine, 4 cups fish stock, salt, pepper, 1 tablespoon flour, a half pound spring onions, 6 large mushrooms, 2 tablespoons oil, 2 tablespoons unsalted butter for skillets and parchment paper. Preheat oven to 350 degrees. We are now going to cut the whiting into chunks. This is to give maximum flavor to the fish stock. Some people use butter when preparing a fish stock, but the chef prefers not to because the fish has a certain amount of fat in it. This way, the dish will contain less fat and the sauce will be lighter. The aromatic vegetables to be used are 2 leeks, washed of course, 2 stalks of celery, 2 onions, 1 garlic clove, thyme, and 1 bay leaf. Don't forget the parsley. Heat a large saucepan, and when it's hot, put in the pieces of whiting, including head and tail, and sweat them well. Sweat is a culinary term, which means to cook gently without coloring to extract the maximum flavor. Then, add 2 liters of water. Meanwhile, cut up the aromatic vegetables. Slice the leeks. Do the same with the celery.
La même chose avec le céleri. Les oignons que l'on va
Slice the onions too.
Donc quand notre poisson
So, when the whiting is well sweated, add the aromatic vegetables.
qui se trouve ici, on va déglacer au vin blanc.
Then deglaze it with a dry white table wine. After that, we'll add the water, then bring to a boil. Lower the heat and simmer for about 20 minutes. We will only use about 4 cups of fish stock for the sauce.
On va porter maintenant ceci à ébullition pendant à peu près 20 minutes.
Now to the scampi. Set aside 6 whole scampis for decorating the finished dish. We are going to shell the remainder. Save the head and claws for the sauce. The shelled tails will be used to accompany the salmon. The 6 reserved scampis will be presented like this. Turn the claws back without breaking them and insert 1 point of each claw into the base of the tail. Now to the salmon, which has been cleaned, washed, and scaled. To scale it, use the blunt side of a knife and work from tail to head. Cut off the head, making an incision on both sides, just below the gills. Next, remove the fillets. Put one hand flat on the fish and run the knife along the back of the salmon, making an incision from head to tail. Then separate the flesh from the backbone. The knife blade must be flat against the bone. Here are the bones. We will see them clearly after the fillets have been removed. Remember, keep the knife blade flat when cutting along the bones, to lift as much flesh as possible. Here is the first fillet. To remove the backbone, you proceed this way.
Je vais le commencer par la queue pour que vous voyez bien exactement où se trouve l'arête. Maintenant, on va parer le saumon, c'est-à-dire enlever la partie.
Now trim the fillets, cutting off the white part, which is the fat.
Pour récupérer vraiment que la chair. Alors, pour enlever la peau du poisson, en démarrant par
To skin the fillet, start at the tail and slide the knife blade in between the flesh and skin, like this, you see? Keeping the cutting edge of the knife towards the skin as you slide it down the length of the fillet. This way you will leave no flesh on the skin. All that remains now is to remove the small bones. While the chef is cutting the fillets, his assistant will strain the fish stock which is cooked. To do this, you will need a bowl and a fine strainer. To slice the fillets, keep the blade of the knife on an angle and cut into 3-inch pieces. These are known as escalopes and should be thick enough so they will not dry out during cooking. Once the fish stock has been strained, we'll start the sauce. Use a large saucepan like this. We will need 2 shallots, peeled and finely chopped this way.
verticalement et maintenant horizontalement. Et en partant
Then start preparing the mushrooms, peeling them starting at the stem,
pour enlever cette peau.
as the chef is doing now. Later, they will be cut into julienne, or matchsticks. The chef will continue with the sauce. Put about 2 tablespoons of butter in the pan, no more, or the sauce will be too heavy.
Et plus vous mettez de beurre maintenant, plus votre sauce sera grasse après.
Add the shallots,
Dans ces échalotes, après ça, on va
and then the reserved scampi heads and claws.
de langoustine.
Now add the gigondas. Remember, it is a Côte du Rhône wine.
Qui est un Côte du Rhône.
Pour the whole bottle in,
Mettre la bouteille en
and let it come to a boil for a few minutes before adding the fish stock, so the acidity of the wine will evaporate.
ébullition pour que l'acidité du vin s'évapore avant d'ajouter
While the wine comes to a boil, we are going to prepare the spring onions which will accompany the fish. You slice through the leaves twice, like this, so they can be washed easily.
et bien laver à l'intérieur. On va pouvoir maintenant ajouter le fumet de poisson. On va ajouter
We now add the fish stock to the sauce, and we'll let it cook for at least 10 minutes.
et maintenant on va laisser cuire le tout ensemble pendant une bonne dizaine de minutes.
This is how you cut the mushrooms in julienne. First, cut the cap into several slices, discarding the dark part underneath. Then slice into sticks, or julienne, about 1/4 inch thick. Butter a skillet with 1 tablespoon of butter and put in the mushrooms. Add just a little water because there is a lot of moisture in mushrooms, which will be released during cooking. This is mainly to prevent sticking at the start. Salt lightly and cover with a piece of buttered parchment paper. In another buttered skillet sprinkled with salt and pepper, we are going to cook the whole scampis which we reserved for the decoration.
Un petit peu de poivre. On va donc ranger nos écrevisses.
Put them flat, arranging carefully so they won't break.
Alors on les range
Later, we'll cover them with a piece of buttered parchment paper and cook them in the oven. After removing the stem end of the tomatoes, bring a saucepan of water to a boil and have a bowl of cold water ready. When the water is boiling, put the tomatoes in for about 20 seconds. Put the spring onions into the skillet of simmering water and blanch for a few minutes until crisp tender. Transfer the tomatoes to the cold water. Then peel and cut into halves crosswise.
la peau de la tomate qui contient l'acidité.
Remove the seeds and liquid, leaving only the flesh of the tomatoes.
Le pépin qui se trouve à l'intérieur pour récupérer que la chair.
Then dice and put into a saucepan to cook gently for about 5 minutes.
Nous allons les égoutter. Nos queues d'écrevisses,
Drain the spring onions.
les mettre elles aussi dans un sautoir.
Put the scampi tails into a buttered skillet, season with salt and pepper, and cover with a piece of buttered parchment paper.
On va les couvrir d'un papier sulfurisé. Et on va les mettre à
Cook in the oven for about 4 to 5 minutes.
une cuillerée de beurre.
Put about 1 tablespoon of butter into a skillet. Now add a little salt and pepper to the tomatoes and cook for another 15 minutes until all the moisture has evaporated. Heat and add the blanched spring onions, tossing gently to coat evenly with the butter. By now, the sauce has cooked for about 30 minutes and we can strain it through a fine strainer into a saucepan. Put it back on the heat and let it reduce by about 1/3. Skim the surface of any impurities that rise.
C'est-à-dire enlever tout ce qui brille au-dessus, toutes les impuretés de la sauce qui sont remontées.
Cover the skillet of whole scampis with a piece of buttered paper and put it into the oven for about 8 minutes.
Alors nos escalopes de saumon, nous allons
Season the escalopes of salmon with salt and pepper.
poivrer. Alors donc dans une poêle, nous allons les
Heat a little oil in a non-stick skillet
beurre.
and add about a tablespoon of butter.
Le beurre boulerait trop rapidement.
We've put oil in to prevent the butter from burning. When hot, add the escalopes of salmon, skin side up, and cook on each side for about 2 to 3 minutes. The side which is cooked first will be the one to be presented on the plate, as it will be slightly more golden. Any impurities which collect in the pan will be on the underneath side of each escalope.
Nos escalopes, nous allons donc les tourner. Voilà. Donc le côté que nous avons présenté en premier dans la poêle, c'est le côté que nous présenterons tout à l'heure sur le plat. Il est légèrement plus doré et ça évite d'avoir toutes les impuretés de l'escalope qui est tombée dans le fond de la poêle sur la face qu'on va présenter.
Drain on a rack to remove the excess fat. Now, back to the sauce which has been reducing. We are going to thicken it with a little kneaded butter, or beurre manier. For this, you combine equal parts of flour and soft butter. For instance, 1 tablespoon of each. Add it little by little to the sauce, letting it cook while stirring between each addition until lightly thickened. So everything is ready now. The whole scampis, the scampi tails, the tomatoes, the mushrooms, and the spring onions. We are going to give a finishing touch to the sauce by adding about 4 tablespoons of softened butter. This will make it more velvety and shiny. Stir it in with a wooden spoon. Now, Chef Beauclair will prepare for you an individual serving. The mushrooms are arranged around the escalope of salmon, along with the spring onion. The salmon is topped with a scampi tail and napped with a little sauce. He will give a bit of color by putting a spoonful of tomatoes on the mushrooms. And for the platter presentation, the chef has added the mushrooms to the sauce and decorated with leaves of chervil.
And now we will be preparing a dish thon basques with Chef Christian Georges.
Fresh tuna Basque style is a regional recipe, and you can tell by the ingredients that it has a Spanish influence. The fresh tuna comes from the Gulf of Gascony in the Atlantic. You'll also use green peppers, red peppers, tomatoes, onions, garlic, parsley, fresh thyme, and bay leaves. These are the main ingredients, and in keeping with the Basque tradition, they will be cooked in olive oil. The tuna will be served with a rice pilaf, which also will be cooked with olive oil, and garlic, red peppers, and green peppers. And here are the ingredients. 12 ounces tomatoes, peeled, seeded, and diced, 3 medium onions, finely chopped, 2 cloves garlic, finely chopped, 4 tablespoons olive oil, 1 medium green pepper, 1 medium red pepper, 3 sprigs thyme, 1 bay leaf. Bouquet garni for rice. Green leek leaves, celery, parsley, bay leaves, thyme. 2.5 pounds of fresh tuna, salt, freshly ground pepper, 2 to 3 tablespoons olive oil, 1.5 cups long grain rice, 3 tablespoons olive oil, 2 cloves garlic finely chopped, 3 cups water, salt, freshly ground pepper, parsley.
Et on enlève le pédoncule. Le pédoncule, c'est cette partie.
Start by peeling the tomatoes.
Voilà.
First, cut
On
out
met
the
donc
stem end with a
pour cette
small
recette
knife.
300 grammes de tomates. On fait bouillir de l'eau, on la porte à ébullition.
Meanwhile, bring a saucepan of water to a boil.
Voilà. Les tomates pour la préparation. Ensuite, on va éplucher
Then peel the
Les
onions.
sans pleurer. Alors, si vous avez beaucoup d'oignons épluchés, il est nécessaire de les mettre dans l'eau tiède avec un peu de vinaigre, ça empêche de pleurer.
If you have many onions to peel, soak them in warm water with a little vinegar.
2 oignons épluchés.
This prevents you from crying.
Voilà, je prépare tous mes éléments.
It is said that when onions have thick skin,
Juste à les tailler.
it means that the winter will be cold.
Alors, lorsque vous avez des peaux épaisses aux oignons, c'est que l'hiver sera froid.
Peel the garlic as well.
Merci. Alors, je vais hacher l'oignon relativement finement. Alors, vous prenez l'oignon,
Chop the
Coupé en
onion
deux.
finely. Cut
vous
them
hachez
vertically in
assez
half,
finement.
then lay them on their flat side and make several parallel cuts, first vertically, then horizontally,
Alors, lorsque vos
leaving it
oignons sont
attached at the
hachés,
root end.
vous les faites
Turn the onion one
revenir
quarter
et
turn
ensuite
and cut it into small
avec de l'huile
pieces.
d'olive. Alors, voilà, les oignons hachés.
Once the onions are chopped,
Vous prenez
sweat them in olive oil. To sweat a vegetable means to cook it gently without coloring. Put a sauté pan on medium heat and pour in a little olive oil.
et vous mettez les oignons hachés.
Add the
hachés
onions
doucement.
and let them heat gently to avoid coloring them.
Voilà, ça va chauffer doucement parce qu'il faut éviter de les colorer.
Stir them with a
Avec une
wooden
spatule en
spoon.
bois.
Meanwhile,
Pendant ce temps-là,
chop the
vous
garlic.
commencez à hacher l'oignon, l'ail plutôt.
first slice it thinly, then chop it finely and add it to the onions.
Et vous mettez aussi l'ail avec maintenant on prend un poivron vert,
Now cut a green
on
pepper in
enlève aussi
half.
le pédoncule et
Remove the
tous les
stem,
pépins
the seeds, and all of the white
sont à
part.
l'intérieur.
Clean a red pepper the same way.
On prend un poivron rouge, on fait la même chose. Je vais garder
Use
un
half of each
demi-poivron
pepper
vert
to
et
make
un
the rice.
demi-poivron rouge pour préparer le riz pour tout à l'heure.
Slice the halves lengthwise into thin strips, then cut in the other direction to make small dice. The precise French culinary term for vegetables cut into small dice is brunoise.
Et ensuite des petits dés de poivron rouge et de poivron vert. Maintenant, je fais quelque chose. Le tout en petits dés, en brunoise, le terme exact en cuisine.
Then take 2 peeled cloves of garlic and chop them finely.
Toujours pour le riz, hein.
This is
La
also for the
préparation
rice.
pour cuire le riz.
Put the vegetables for the rice onto a plate and set them aside.
Voilà, les légumes pour le riz.
Go back to the remaining
Maintenant,
peppers,
je continue
which will be used for the
les
tuna.
légumes.
Slice the peppers into short sticks.
Je coupe,
Be sure to remove the white flesh, since it is bitter.
toujours enlever les parties blanches qui donnent un goût amer.
Meanwhile, don't forget to stir the onions and garlic. They should be well
Les
cooked
oignons
but
et
not
l'ail ne
colored.
sont pas trop colorés, mais bien fondus. La même chose avec le poivron vert.
Finish slicing the peppers and then add them
Alors,
to
les
the
oignons
well-cooked
sont
onions
fondus,
and garlic.
Et maintenant, je vais mettre les poivrons verts et rouges.
Add some fresh thyme leaves
Je vais mettre aussi
or a little bit of dried thyme.
du thym frais.
Stir all of this well with a wooden spoon and then add just 1 bay leaf. Use bay leaves sparingly since they are very strong.
Et une feuille de laurier.
Too many bay leaves can overpower the other flavors. Move it to low heat and allow it to cook
Maintenant, je
gently.
concasse les tomates.
Now go back to the tomatoes. To peel them, put them into rapidly boiling water for just a few seconds. Once they are all peeled, cut them in half horizontally. Then squeeze each half with one hand and use one finger of the other hand to scrape out the seeds. Do this over a bowl. Next, cut the flesh into small dice. Now you know how to make peeled, seeded, and diced tomatoes, or what French cooks call tomate concassée.
Les
The
tomates,
tomatoes are now ready to be cooked.
poivrons,
Add them to the cooked pepper, onion, and garlic mixture. Stir them in and season with pepper and salt.
je vais poivrer et saler.
The chef is using coarse salt, but fine salt is just as good. Now the chef will prepare the bouquet garni, which will be used to flavor the rice.
Pour
This is a basic operation which appears frequently in French cooking.
le bouquet garni pour cuire le riz. Alors ça aussi, c'est une opération de base. Vous prenez du verre de poireau.
Cut the large green leaves from the top of a leek.
Vous prenez du verre de céleri.
Break off some celery leaves.
Vous prenez du persil.
You'll also need parsley stems and leaves,
Vous prenez une feuille de laurier.
1 bay leaf,
Vous prenez un peu de thym.
and a few branches of thyme.
Et évidemment, une ficelle. Sur le côté.
We'll use a piece of string to tie it all together. The chef repeats: thyme, a bay leaf, leek
Du
leaves,
poireau,
celery,
du
and
céleri
parsley.
Et du persil. Vous prenez d'abord
Start by taking 2 leek leaves and placing one inside the other.
de poireau. Vous ajoutez
Into the fold, put the celery leaves, parsley,
une feuille de céleri.
thyme, and bay leaf.
Exactement comme si vous faisiez une cigarette. Hein. Le persil, le thym, le laurier. Puis, pour bien enfermer, vous rajoutez
Wrap it up with a few more leek leaves. This will hold everything together and make it easy to remove from the rice later.
Avec une ficelle, vous entourez d'abord autour
Squeeze it firmly in your hand.
pour empêcher de glisser.
Wrap the string around one finger to prevent it from slipping,
En serrant bien,
and tie up the bouquet garni securely.
qui vont servir à la cuisson du riz.
These are all of the ingredients for cooking the rice: the garlic, red pepper, green pepper, and the bouquet garni.
Alors là,
Now
vous
we're
voyez,
back to the tuna
les
sauce.
légumes commencent
You can see that it is much more liquidy because of the water that has cooked out of the tomatoes. Let the sauce continue to simmer gently on low heat.
Alors, on fait mijoter doucement. Voilà. Et on va maintenant s'occuper du thon. Alors, vous avez deux
The
sortes
chef
de
will now begin to cook the tuna.
deux sortes principales.
There are many varieties of tuna, but the principal distinction is between white tuna and red tuna. The chef is using red tuna, which he says is more flavorful than the white.
Et poivrer le thon.
Start by seasoning both sides with salt and pepper.
Voilà. Je fais chauffer une poêle avec de l'huile d'olive. Je fais bien chauffer.
Heat some olive oil in a sauté pan. Once the oil is very hot, brown the
Et on
tuna
va
on
colorer
all
le thon
sides.
sur toutes ses faces.
Turn it gently with two
Alors,
spatulas
vous le colorez
and be
aussi
sure to
sur le
brown the
côté.
skin sides as well.
On fait à peu près la même
Tuna is a
préparation
very
pour un
fatty
rôti.
fish, and browning it like this helps to remove some of the fat.
De le faire dorer comme ça élimine une partie de sa graisse. Parce que le thon est un poisson très gras. Voilà, maintenant, je vais placer le thon avec les légumes.
Once the tuna is browned on all sides, lift it carefully
J'écoute bien
and
d'abord.
drain it well. Then place it into the vegetables.
Voilà, je vais le placer avec les légumes et on va le cuire au four.
Cover the tuna with aluminum foil to prevent the steam from
Sur
escaping,
le thon,
and cover the pan with a metal
pour que
lid.
la vapeur ne s'échappe pas. Et je vais mettre un couvercle dessus et je le mets au four.
Put it into the oven at 375 degrees for 25 minutes. Now cook the rice.
Le riz long,
Use long grain rice, garlic, red pepper, green pepper, the bouquet garni you prepared earlier, and olive oil.
je mesure
Measure 1.5 cups of rice and 3 cups of water.
de riz. Et je mesure 600 grammes d'eau. Lorsque l'on fait cuire du riz, il faut toujours
To cook rice, always use 1 part rice and 2 parts water, bouillon, or another liquid.
Maintenant, je vais faire
First, put a little olive oil into a saucepan and put it on medium heat.
l'ail d'abord. Avec
Add
l'huile
the
d'olive.
garlic and sweat it very gently.
Alors, je
Never
fais
allow
cuire
garlic to
doucement
color
l'ail,
or it will
parce que
turn
l'ail ne
bitter.
doit jamais colorer. S'il colore, il prend un goût désagréable. Ensuite, j'ajoute
Then add the green peppers and red peppers.
Je fais suer l'ensemble.
Stir them in with a wooden spoon and allow them to sweat all together.
Maintenant, j'ajoute le riz. Et je vais nacrer le riz.
Add the rice and stir it well until every grain of rice is thinly coated with oil.
Mélanger avec la matière grasse. Chaque grain de riz est entouré d'une mince pellicule d'huile. Voilà. J'ajoute l'eau.
Pour in the water
Voilà.
and
J'ajoute
add the bouquet
le
garni.
bouquet garni.
Season it with salt and a little bit of pepper.
Et un tout petit peu de poivre.
This is a recipe that should always be well seasoned, as is typical in the south of France. Stir the rice and bring it to a
Je vais
boil.
porter à ébullition.
Once the water boils,
Lorsque
cover it and cook it in the oven.
je vais mettre un couvercle.
The chef says that the only precise cooking times are 10 minutes for hard-boiled eggs and 17 minutes for rice.
Et le riz
Other than these, nothing in cooking is precise.
voilà. Le riz,
Once it boils,
le riz arrive.
cover it with a metal lid and put it into the oven with the tuna.
Et je mets au four à cuire en même temps que le thon. Toujours le four à 180 degrés pendant 17 minutes.
After 17 minutes,
Le riz est cuit.
remove the rice from the oven.
Laissez quelques minutes
Set it aside for a few minutes
et ensuite
and remove the tuna from the oven.
pour l'instant, je laisse comme ça. Je sors le thon.
Be very careful with these pans and lids since they are extremely hot.
Passe légèrement en suivant. Et avec la pointe d'un couteau, je vérifie
Test
que
the
le thon
tuna
est
with the point of a knife.
La lame entre
When the blade pierces the flesh easily with no resistance, the tuna is
sans
done.
la moindre résistance.
Lift it gently and transfer it to your cutting board. Use a small knife to gently scrape off the skin.
Je vais placer le thon
Then place the tuna in the center of a serving platter.
au centre du
This
plat,
clay platter is typical of the south of France
avec la
and goes
pointe
well
du
with
couteau,
this
je
regional
pique dans
recipe.
l'arête, de façon à ressortir
With the point of a knife, remove the large central bone.
l'arête.
Take out as many of the small bones as possible, but be sure to warn your guests to watch out for the few bones that may remain. Spoon the sauce around the sides of the tuna
Voilà.
to fill the bottom of the platter.
Chaud. Avec un pinceau, je récupère
Use a small brush to coat the tuna with a little bit of sauce.
avec la
Once the
fourchette,
rice has rested
le
for
riz
a
a
few
reposé
minutes,
un peu,
remove the bouquet garni,
j'égrène le riz.
fluff it with a fork, and put it into a serving dish. Decorate the tuna with sprigs of fresh parsley and have a taste of this delicious dish.
And now we are finished with this cassette. I hope you've enjoyed these recipes. As you can see, they are not difficult to make. Don't forget, we do have 7 other cassettes available with recipes from Le Cordon Bleu.